I'm Beto, and you're watching Modern Immigrant. Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of Modern Immigrant. If you're new, just know that we have new episodes every Monday, and we have episodes in both English and Spanish. So, I will be sharing an amazing story today. I had the best time talking to Ximena Restrepo. Yes, Ximena is with us, and we explore a amazing journey with her immigration, and we explore amazing topics as well. We had great discussions. We explore how her immigration story has had different moments and different experiences. Ximena was born in Colombia and she moved to the USA when she was about 7 years old. Her family came to the US to seek political asylum, which was denied after 7 years living in the USA. So with Ximena, we talk about how was that experience of going back to Colombia and then how she approaches immigration after that. Today, Ximena is in Taiwan. She has been there for about a year, actually over a year, and she's gonna share with us how is living in Taiwan, how it was for her learning Chinese, which she continues to learn, and she's sharing all of her experience on a YouTube channel. She's an amazing content creator and you have to check it out so you can learn from an amazing experience. So again, thank you for being here. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes. Subscribing is really important because you get notifications when there's a new episode. And yeah, follow us on Instagram at Modern Immigrant, and you can also check our website, modernimmigrant.net. If you want to be on the podcast, you are more than welcome. If you want to submit your application, you can do it either on Instagram or our website. So I'll see you soon. And again, thank you for being here. Enjoy. Ximena, welcome to Modern Immigrant. This is really exciting. I'm glad that we were able to connect. Thank you to We'll Grow Latinas. I think that was the connection.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I was super happy to find your podcast and what you're doing. It just resonates with me for sure.
Yeah, same when I saw your account and when I heard, when I read your email, I said, this is definitely a story that's going to be, each story is worth sharing, but I'm really excited that you're here. So, Ximena, why don't we start by hearing when did your immigration journey start and how? Because I think that's going to give us like a lot of context and that way people can start to get to know you as well.
Yeah, well, it started when my parents they decided to move to the US. So I'm Colombian. I was born in a city called Manizales, and my parents were super young. They were in like their mid 20s with me as like a little girl. And they decided that they were going to move to the US. My dad already had family there. My mom's family was there. Her parents and her brother was there. So basically, like most of our immediate family was already in the US.
Wow.
So they were saying just, this is the time to really get out of Colombia. Colombia's not doing so well.
Mm.
Colombia's not providing opportunities. So we moved there after traveling. We traveled 1 year to New Jersey to see what it was like, where my mom's family was. We traveled 1 year to Kansas City, where my dad's family was. And then the following year, we went. Um, and we went on tourist visas and we applied for political asylum when we arrived.
Wow. So at least I'm hearing that you have the opportunity to visit. I think that can be helpful. I don't know if you can kind of remember those years. I know you said you were like 7 years old when you did this.
Yeah, so we started going when I was maybe five or
Okay.
six. So we went like 1 year when I was five, 1 year when I was six. And then I remember we did move there when I was eight.
Okay. How do you remember that arriving to the US?
We went when we moved, it felt different than it had other years. We moved
Mm,
in the summer when we usually would go in the winter because December is a big deal in Colombia.
right.
So you always take like all of December to travel. Like December is like a no work month in Colombia.
Same in Venezuela, yes.
So everyone's traveling, everyone's doing their thing. So this was the first time we left just in the middle of the year.
Mm,
And we arrived and it was just like super, super hot summer because the Midwest gets really hot summers and really cold winters.
Hmm.
And everyone was on summer vacation, and we arrived at my aunt's house. So I could like see all her neighbors who were also immigrants. They were like German and just like different kinds of immigrants that I had never had experience being around
Hmm.
before.
Yeah.
And it really felt different. It felt like, oh, like this is a whole different thing than I've experienced before. It's not Christmas time, it's not vacation. We're just like here.
Yeah. That is so interesting that a lot of immigrants, I feel like they remember. Sometimes when I talk to other immigrants, they say, you know, I went once to the US to study English and I knew I was coming back. And then I went again for 3 months to travel and then I came back. But like a lot of people remember that kind of like final, right, destination when you say, this is it, this is where we're going to be living. And I think it's interesting that you're also mentioning because you were a kid and something inside you was like, this is not a vacation. This is not a vacation.
It was such a childish moment too,
Mm.
because my parents told me they were like, we're going to leave and we're not going to come back. And it
Wow.
was so exciting for me because it still felt like new and interesting. I didn't feel nostalgic for leaving.
Mm.
I remember telling my teachers like, we're gonna go live there. We're gonna
Wow.
leave. And my teachers just being so chill and them just being like, all right, well, send me a pair of shoes if you ever remember me, or like
Right.
just it just being a thing. Like there was this mass amount of people in Colombia that were just leaving. So when
Mm.
you tell your teachers that you're leaving the country, they don't blink. They're just like, yeah, okay. Like another person's leaving.
Mm. Like, yeah, that's expected. Wow. And then how were those years? Because I know you mentioned that your family applied for the political and asylum, which I'm interested to hear. How was that experience? But how was for you those years of adapting? When did you start at school? Like, how was all that from being a tourist to actually saying, this is my home?
Yeah, well, we arrived. I remember, so since I was so young, my parents, I think, made a very conscious decision to not tell me a lot of what was happening legally.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I think that was a decision that they made, and I don't judge them for it. I don't know if I would do the same thing because I don't have kids. Um, but it was the decision that they made. So for a long time while we were there, they were just in charge of keeping us safe and keeping us legal and making sure that we had whatever we had. And I was in charge of being a kid, and
Right.
that's something to admire, to like give your child the chance to just live their life without worries.
I think that's
Um,
huge. Yeah.
so I really did live like a very carefree life.
Mm.
I started school. We arrived in July, and I started school, I think right in August. We start pretty
Yeah.
early in the Midwest. So I started like mid-August after like a month of just like hanging around with the neighbors, not understanding anything because I wasn't bilingual yet.
Wow.
Um,
Were you still
and
playing with
they just,
them? Like, I can only imagine you
oh
being like,
yeah.
yeah, this is fun, but I don't know what's happening. Yeah.
100%. So I had neighbors that were like around my age, maybe a little bit younger, a little bit older, but we were all in like the same like 5 year range.
Yeah.
And some of the neighbors were Italian, the neighbors across the street were German, but they were already like first generation. They were
Mm.
bilingual. Like they maybe didn't speak that much of their parents' native tongue. I didn't speak any English, but we would still play. We would be on the swings. We would play in like water slides, and I somehow it wasn't that big of a deal.
Mm.
My mom says she remembers me like at the pool, like getting in the pool and playing with my friend, jumping out of the pool, going to her because she was bilingual. She studied languages in school. So I would go and be like, "How do I say this?" And she
That's
would
so
tell me, and then I
cute.
would run back into the pool.
That is really cute. That is such a cute story, and it's amazing also to think about how kids get to, just enjoy the moment and don't care that much about those things that I feel like if you maybe would have been a teenager or an adult, it would have been a total different story, right? Like, hey, I'm new in this country, I don't speak the language, and then you can kind of, and I can't wait to hear about Taiwan because I know I don't know if you speak the language, but we're gonna get there. Because I think that's really
Oh my
interesting.
gosh, it is a very different experience.
Right?
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Like imagine like it's definitely happening now, but like when I started school, I didn't speak any English. I didn't speak any English. And they just put me in a classroom with a bunch of kids. and would just like have at it. And I would have maybe like 1 hour of ESL class per day and then 6 hours of class where I didn't know what was happening.
That's crazy.
And my mom says that within 2 or 3 weeks I was speaking, and within 3 months I was fluent,
Wow, that's mind blowing.
which
Because
is just like
even
kids
bilingual
just
families, like it's just so amazing. Because I know a lot of friends that they're raising their kids and they speak in Spanish, but then they go to school in English, and even them, they're struggling with being fluent in one of each, right? Like hearing that story is amazing. Like really, you picked it up so fast.
absolutely. It really taught me a lot about how kids learn languages, because kids don't really learn languages, they just kind of absorb them.
Yeah,
So from then
and
on,
kids.
like I've just been about like learning something in the language. Like if you learn how to crochet in Japanese, you're gonna learn Japanese.
Sure. That's why it's so important the immersion piece, right? Like the okay, if you're gonna go to school, everything's gonna be in the language because that way you're like seeing math in English, seeing so that's amazing. I'm glad that you had that. Like I guess it sounds like you had a good experience with learning the language and then feeling kind of like adapted to the culture pretty quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And what happened? So how many years were you guys in the Midwest, and what happened after that application on the asylum? For those that might not even understand what does it mean to apply for asylum?
Right. So technically, in most countries, it's defined as you apply for, I guess, kind of like refuge because you're being persecuted. And they call it like you have to like have a specific list of things that you're being persecuted for, and it can be like religion or gender or sexual orientation,
Yeah,
um, politics, etc. So when you're applying for these things, you have to say like, my family is being persecuted because of this, this, and this. The situation wasn't so directed where my family was being personally persecuted, as far as I know. Again, like all
yeah.
of these details are like my
Mm-hmm.
childhood self. I
Right.
feel like a child, like just thinking like I don't really
I
know
don't
what was
know, but I
happening.
think they did a great thing by keeping you kind of. I don't know. I'm not a parent either. Maybe we're saying something crazy, but I feel like what I'm seeing right now with a lot of the kids that are immigrants or first generations, I feel like because of the political environment in the US, they're so close to what's happening and they're suffering the consequences of seeing their parents taken away that I'm like, I don't know if they're ready for that. Like it's too much. So maybe that fact that you were kind of like, you're a kid, your responsibility is to go to school. That's it. I mean, it sounded like it was good.
Yeah, I think it's a privilege. It's a privilege to have been removed from that situation on purpose and to grow up without the worry of someone taking away my family or taking me away or
Yeah,
separating us or doing anything. Like I did not have that worry for a single day, and that is such a privilege.
100%. Yeah, yeah. And then you apply for
So,
an asylum or your family, and then you can stay in the country while you wait for the decision. Okay.
right. I think I don't know if that's changed, but at the
Mm-hmm.
time that's how it was. My dad's brother and his family, so it was him, his wife, and his two daughters, had gone the year before we did, and they also applied for political asylum. They went to the same city. We were all in like the same place.
Great.
So we all applied within a year from each other with the same exact thing. Like, we're from Colombia. Like, this is what's happening in
Yeah.
Colombia. This is what our family is like. This is what we're here to do. Like, we're here to work and just raise our children. Um, so that was pending for pretty much all 7 years that we were there. And
Wow.
then his brother's political asylum was approved. They are now citizens. Ours was denied.
Wow, Ximena. That's so, so hard. Especially after like just 7 years. That's exactly the amount of time I have in the US, and I feel definitely my status is it's like another story, but I feel like this is my home right now. Here's where I have my family, here's where I'm living, here's where I work. So it's like just imagining with the timing, just thinking that somebody would just knock at your door, you would receive a letter that says, this is it. Yeah, that's so, so hard.
And it was such a surreal process because the year that it happened, we were just living our lives, like I was planning for college because I was entering high school. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do for that? When am I going to get my driver's license? Like the things on my mind were so beyond, like, we're not going to live here
Right.
anymore.
This is not
And
your
we
country
planned a
or something like
vacation.
that. Oh, wow.
Exactly. Like, we planned a vacation. We went to Florida and we went with my cousin, which like her political asylum had been approved. And we went with her to Florida. And right before we went, my parents got the news, but they didn't tell us.
No way.
So we spent a whole vacation, and my parents just like didn't let on that they knew that it was like our last vacation and we would be leaving after. So I remember being denied, but my parents being like, no, we're going to appeal and everything's going to be fine. Like, we're going to figure
Really.
this out. But then they found out, no, we really have to leave and we're going to leave right after this vacation.
I got goosebumps. Seriously, like just imagining your parents carrying on with that and just trying to figure it out. Okay, what's next? Like, what are we gonna do, right? Like, where are we gonna go? How much time do you get after your asylum was denied? At least at that time, just to have an idea.
At that time, you get 1 year to leave on voluntary leave, is what they call it.
Okay.
And the voluntary leave, I remember knowing that it's a very annoying process. You have to give basically a deposit to the US government and for them to assure that you're going to leave. And if you don't, they will use that money to deport you.
Wow, I did not know
And
that.
then you're supposed to report back to the US Embassy in your country, which we went and we reported back. We never got that money back.
Are you serious?
And they just kind of give you some bullshit excuse like, this is, you didn't cross this T or dot this I, and therefore you don't get your deposit back,
Wow.
and you're still out of the country. So that I remember being absolutely crazy. But yeah, we
Definitely.
had a full year to appeal or leave,
Okay.
and we left right before the year was up.
Okay, okay. Wow, that's so insane. Like, I can only imagine how it is right now. Like, in that sense of, the deposit and the money, because I hear so many crazy stories on people getting their status pending forever and never receiving a response. Like, that's what's happening right now. That if that happened to you guys, I can only imagine. I don't think it's getting better. I don't know. Yeah, and just imagining a whole family that needs to leave to another country or back to their country without that money, right? Like, I'm sure a lot of them are gonna need some extra help and some support. So that's just crazy. How was arriving to Medellin after? I mean, I don't know if you guys. I'm guessing you didn't go to visit, right, during that time.
No, so I don't think we were allowed to
Yeah,
visit. I think we were we,
I don't.
we
Yeah,
weren't allowed to leave the country. So we stayed in the US the entire time.
yeah.
And then we were supposed to arrive in Manizales, in my hometown. And it Manizales is like known for having the world's worst weather. The airport's always closed. So we arrived in a nearby
Really.
city and then arrived into the city in a like airport provided car.
Okay.
So we came in, I remember my parents never made it feel like it was the worst thing, even
Okay.
though they probably felt that way. So they've always just been like very protective of us. And I say us because while we were in the US, my parents had another child. So my sister's a US citizen.
Oh wow, interesting.
So they were very protective of us. We arrived back in Colombia, and I remember it feeling like this big welcome wagon. Like, my grandparents had moved back at that time, so we had family there, and they arrived with like flowers and food, and they just treated it like a welcome back, not so much as like, we're so sorry this happened to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So my parents always made it seem like, we're gonna fight this. We're gonna fight this. We're gonna figure this out. Like, my dad's work was behind him, and they were just like, we're gonna get you back. We're gonna get you a work visa. We're gonna get your family back here. So it just
Wow.
felt so positive the whole time.
Yeah.
So much so that I never said goodbye to anyone at my school. I was just like, no, no, like, we're just gonna be gone for a few months. Like, it'll be fine.
Wow. Yeah. And how did that make you feel? Because then you were the teenager that we were talking about at the beginning, right? Like, then you were the teenager kind of, I don't know, how did that feel, because 7 years in the US and learning the language and the culture, it shapes you. It makes you, you know, stand out, maybe different from a kid that grew up in Colombia.
I basically had the immigrant experience
Mm,
backwards.
yeah.
So I had to go to school and it was totally foreign because it's no longer when I was a kid where I would just come in and I was totally different and kids were just like, whatever, we don't know what we are anyways. Like
Right.
it's not a big deal. No, but at this point I went into this
Mm.
Jesuit school and it was uniforms and no makeup and no nail polish and super strict and how long is your skirt? And
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't been through that since I was 8 years old when I had left like a private school. I
Right.
was a tiny little kid and I had been in public schools my whole life. Um, so that was a shock. And then everyone knew each other. Everyone had been
Oh.
together since like preschool. So they only get like one or two new kids every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the new kid who was supposedly Colombian. I looked like everyone else, but I didn't talk like everyone else and I didn't act like everyone else. And I was weird.
Oh no. Man, of course, and like the references, right? Like I'm sure you were watching different shows, listening to different music, like things that we take for granted that are so important for a teenager, right? Like to identify themselves. Wow.
Exactly. And it's crazy. Like I've always found it crazy that the way we do math in the US is different. So I couldn't even be good at the numbers part.
Oh,
It was the words, the numbers, everything was backwards. My Spanish was actually not that good, so I had to like relearn a lot of things and figure out so many things about Colombian history that I didn't know anything about Colombian history or Colombian geography, Colombian anything.
right,
So
right.
I was this alien who just looked like everyone else.
Do you feel the Spanish was a challenge because you weren't taking Spanish classes here in the US? Like maybe the grammar part?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think so because my family always spoke in Spanish. I had definitely that immigrant tendency toward like responding in English every time my parents would talk to me in Spanish.
Yeah.
But my parents never let up. They never talked to me in Spanish unless they felt it was like rude in front of like guests.
Okay.
But the house was like a Spanish zone.
Wow. That's interesting, right? Like having the backwards experience, I think that's really, yeah, and saying like I'm from here, guys. I swear, I'm Colombian. Mm-hmm.
And just having like I remember I started dating a guy pretty soon after I arrived because
Yeah.
it was like a friend of a cousin and him just being like you talk so weird like you have such a weird accent you have like I'm just like I don't hear myself talk weird. I hear myself talk like I hear you talk, so I couldn't see what everyone else was seeing. I'm like I
Oh,
feel Colombian, I feel like
right.
I'm from here, I get your jokes, I want the same food that you want, but somehow I'm so different.
Oh, that is so hard. Yeah. What were some of the things that you started to miss the most from the US and from the life you had here?
Oh man. I mean, right away it was like what I always miss now that I leave, or now that I'm like I feel like I never moved to a country where it's easy to shop for things. I missed Amazon so bad. I was just like, I just want to buy a book. Like, why is it so hard to find a nice English book?
Well, I always have that struggle with my mom. She lives in Colombia and she's always like, "Can you please help me like getting this book or a movie? Like renting a movie over the internet, it's so challenging for them in Colombia." And I'm always like, "But use my Amazon link or use this and then you can watch a movie over there with my account or stuff like that." And it's crazy. It's something that you wouldn't imagine being that insane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like when we moved back, I had like a feeling that it was gonna be really different, and I remember like packing like my nice shampoo bottles and all these things, and like my cousins just being like, "Leave that here, you can find that there," and I left it in Kansas, and there was
Nope.
no finding good
Yeah.
stuff. Like it was 2008, so like there was a bunch of things that you just could not. It was 2008, and you couldn't find a McDonald's in my hometown. Like it was that small
Wow.
where I got there and I was like, what is
I
this?
mean, well, yeah, it's crazy because when I came to the US, I also packed a lot of things that I knew I wasn't gonna find here. But then you're arriving to a totally new culture, and you're like, oh, this is exciting, right? Like I can eat Hershey's and Kit Kats, and I don't miss my food anymore. But you knew both cultures, so it's like for you, the two things were home to you. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's so hard, Jimen. And how do you think that, whole experience, you became an immigrant. It seems like you became an immigrant twice. Define or shape what was coming and what came afterwards? Because I know you mentioned that you have explored immigration in other countries, and we can talk about where you're right now. So how do you think that experience changed you for in a way?
Honestly, what's crazy is that after that, I have been constantly craving like a sense of stability.
Mm,
And in everything that happened, I would just be like, can I just stay still for a minute?
mm, yeah.
And somehow it's a very self-sabotagey thing where I won't let myself settle. I
Mm,
won't I as soon as I get what I want, I get some stability, I get antsy and I get like, I don't know about this. This doesn't feel right.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I moved to Medellin for university. After I finished university, I studied literature. I studied literature actually to like connect with my Hispanic roots. So I studied Hispanic American literature.
I love that.
It didn't work.
Why do you think like it didn't work in the sense like it didn't connect you to the culture, or why do you say it didn't work?
I think like what I really wanted, I was just like, I want so badly to feel more Colombian. I want to feel more
Yeah.
connected to the history and everything here. And the more that I tried, the
Mm.
more that I found myself in like Latin American writers that lived in the US.
Wow. Yeah.
So I did my bachelor thesis on code switching on Latin American authors who write in English, but they use Spanish or they translate directly and they don't explain. So basically, on people who are
Mm.
hybrids.
Well, like you. Yeah. Or that are struggling
So
with
I
those
found what I
two identities. Mm-hmm.
exactly. So I found kind of like what I really am in trying to fit myself in what I'm definitely not.
Mm.
And then after that, I started doing a lot of writing. I started hanging out with a lot of the expat crowd in Medellin, just like people from Canada and the US and Europe. And it was, I felt like I really fit in. Like
Mm.
my mom was like, "Oh, your university friends are the ones that last forever." Totally false in my experience. Like
Right.
my university friends were great and they're super sweet, but I didn't connect to anyone more until after
Mm.
university when I found this expat community. Where I was like,
Interesting.
oh, you guys like living in Colombia, and you guys like learning Spanish, and you also have all these other connections and references that I know.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, you have the connection of the immigrant piece or the expat piece that I also feel really interested with the term, because I remember we kind of chatted about it, and I would love to ask you, why are you referring to them as expats and maybe you're referring as immigrant when you talk about yourself and your experience? Like where do you think there's a difference?
There is absolutely no difference. Really the only thing that makes us, and I say us because clearly like I do it too, and it's what makes us call some people immigrants and some people expats is elitism.
Mm,
Like I I don't even want to say colorism, even though it's probably the case in some circumstances, but it really is just elitism. Like we will consider
mm,
American and European and rich people from rich countries expats because they quote unquote chose to live there, and that's not the real reason.
mm,
And we'll consider people who had to travel to seek better opportunities from developing countries to more developed countries immigrants, and they're doing the exact same thing. They're
yeah.
leaving because they have to or want to, and they're going somewhere else, and they're setting up shop. And some of them do it legally, and some of them do it illegally, and that actually crosses the line. Some
Yeah. Yeah.
people in both groups do both things.
Yeah, and in both, I'm so glad that you're mentioning this and talking about this, because I see it. I mean, in a big, the big reason for me to start this podcast was that sense of why is immigration seen as such a terrible thing, right? As a, oh, poor you, that you had to leave your country and this terrible thing happened to you. And yeah, a lot of immigration stories are super hard and are sad and terrible, but a lot of immigrants, as you said, they chose this life and they chose to find better opportunities or to explore the world and just, yeah, seeing that of course there's privilege, right? And I think that's why maybe the term changes and saying, oh no, I wasn't kicked out of my country, I'm here, with a lot of benefits, and I will go back whenever I want to. I think that really doesn't change the experience at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine if like someone, I don't know, in Trump's America decides, this country is not friendly towards me. If a black family decides, hey, this family is not this country is not friendly towards my family. It's not welcoming. I feel endangered. I don't feel good here, and I'm gonna move. And they move to, I don't know, somewhere in South America, and South America changes their laws, and that maybe means that they're there illegally for a
Mm-hmm.
while they figure something out. Somehow they are still expats, and people who do it backwards are not. And
Yeah.
I think we need to look at ourselves and be like, why
Mm.
do I think things this
Yeah.
way? Like, why do I consider these people to have more, I guess, more autonomy over their
Mm.
lives than I consider for immigrants?
Yeah, yeah. Especially when we're talking about laws that who's controlling those laws, right? Like we don't even know when things are gonna flip. And the ones that are expats, as you said, are gonna be like, oh, now I have to go, or oh, now I need to stay here, overstay, or whatever. Like we really don't know. And especially now,
That's
seeing
uh,
like crazy precedents and things happening around the world, like maybe the US is going to face that in the future. We don't know, right? Like we saw it when Trump won. People were joking about, "Oh, maybe now I need to move to Canada." And I was just thinking on how much privilege can they have to say, I'm going to move to Canada because I don't like my president. But I did the same coming, from Venezuela to the US, but I wasn't seen as, the good immigrant. I was seen as, oh yeah, this person that, it's taking advantage, or, poor of her country's terrible. And it really is the same. Like trying to find better opportunities. So yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I see so many people in Colombia when I was living there, so many people that would overstay their visas,
Yeah.
so many people that would cheat the system. And I've had boyfriends that cheated the system. They got fraudulent student visas
Mm.
and they don't even think twice. And you know that when that happens in their countries, like they're thinking like, oh man, like this person, like they're not doing it the right way. They're
Uh-huh.
not doing, and that
Yeah.
makes me so mad.
Yeah, what makes you different from that person? Like it's just so frustrating. Yeah, I'm really glad that we were able to have this discussion, because I hopefully somebody that's listening can really start to maybe expand those concepts and explore, okay, and if you're having an issue with these concepts or the conversation, I think you really need to dig in and see why is that happening, right? Why does that cause you so much conflict? And Ximena, I would love to hear kind of like where you are right now, because as you said, you continue to find that stability and that place. Have you found it, or you continue to kind of travel and explore in other countries?
So I
Mm,
did find it after a very long time. It's been like what, 12 years since I left the US, which is crazy.
crazy.
I haven't been back even once. I haven't visited. I've applied for two tourist visas and they were both denied.
No, Ximena, really.
Yeah, I wanted to go see my cousin, the one who like her family was given asylum and citizenship and mine was not. We spent 7 years without seeing each other because of this. She had to come to Colombia after my tourist visa was denied the first time.
Wow.
So
Do you know
since
what is
then,
the
I've
night?
traveled a lot.
Sorry, do you know what is the night? Like, do
Oh,
they
go ahead.
tell you why?
They kind of tell you, they give everyone a generic paper. So I don't know as a Venezuelan, I'm sure it's probably the same, but you have to go in person
Mm-hmm.
and be interviewed for your visa.
Yeah.
You have to pay, I think, about 190 US dollars per application.
Yeah.
So I went through that whole process twice. I showed up in Bogota twice. I got two different interviews from two different interviewees. And
Hmm.
the first time I had this very, very rude person, um, who I remember like very distinctly. I feel like scarred.
Mm.
And he was basically just accusing me of, as a child, overstaying a visa. That I was just like, listen, I was 8 years old. I genuinely gathered all the documents that I could, and I found a document that says that we were waiting for asylum legally.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like, no, I think you know that you were there illegally. And I was just like,
No.
regardless of what happened when I was a kid, I am an adult now, and
Right.
I have like I didn't have the power at that time. I now have. I'm an adult.
Wow.
And he was very dismissive. He was just like, I think you knew, and just like handed me a denial letter, a generic denial letter. And they
Wow.
basically just have never liked that I'm fluent in English. I've been freelance working for so long. I have every reason to overstay. I have no
Mm,
kids. I have no husband. I have no property. So they're always
yeah.
just like, you have nothing tying you here, so you can't go.
Wow. How hard for you to see it as, that was a country that was a home for you for so long.
Honestly, like my experience as an adult has been to constantly be denied whatever I say I am. So when I say I'm Colombian, people are like, "Yeah, but you don't sound Colombian, and you do this and you do that, and all your friends are American. You only date American people." And then when I am like, "No, I feel really American," they're just like, "Yeah, but you only have a Colombian passport, and you only do this, and blah, 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 and your family's Colombian, and you were born in Colombia, and you haven't been to the U.S. in 12 years." So I'm never really allowed to be whatever I say I am.
Hmm. It's like people are always trying to choose what they think you are, which is so frustrating. Yeah.
Exactly.
How was your experience
So,
of like, and I know this is kind of like goes off the topic because I know you're gonna say that you did find the stability, but I'm wondering like when you mentioned that you have only dated Americans, I'm just curious because when you went back to Colombia, that was the time or the period to start meeting, maybe going out with other people and dating. Did you feel like a cultural shock in that sense, like meeting maybe other people that were from Colombia when you were starting to date?
yeah, a little bit. It was really exciting. It
Mm.
just felt cool. It felt really exciting. I dated a guy who was like 4 years older than me. So at the time, like, I guess that would be very controversial in the US now. I was 15 and he was 19, which is
Yeah.
a big age difference when you're 15,
Yeah.
but when you're like 20, it's like nothing. But yeah, no, he was a close friend of the family, and and that was really exciting for a while. We didn't date for that long, and then I had a much like longer term boyfriend in high school, and those were all really good experiences.
Yeah.
Like I felt very close to them. I felt very understood. I didn't feel very judged for being different.
Mm.
Um,
Great.
but it wasn't until I like was finishing university that I met a Canadian guy, and I felt like this thing like woke up in me, and I was like, oh, I can make these jokes with you, and I can
Yes.
do this, and I can like reminisce. And he was from like basically the Midwest of Canada, so like we had so many of the same references,
That's
and like
awesome.
just basic things like weather and
Mm.
food and all. And then I was just like, oh, like this feels like home.
Mm.
And so I dated him for about 2, 3 years. And then after that, I met my current boyfriend, and he is from the Midwest in the US.
Are you
His
serious? Wow.
It's ridiculous. Like
How did
he
you
is from
meet?
Ohio. That's what I think is ridiculous. I'm just like, if we ever break up, I'm just like, how do I find someone that have this many things in common with? Because his family, they're African American. His dad is African, and they moved to Medellin to find his dad healthcare. So his family lives in Medellin, but they're from the Midwest, and we just have too
No.
many things in common.
It's like the flip scenario. How
Exactly,
amazing.
like they're immigrants in
Yeah.
Colombia trying to find better healthcare.
Wow. And I have heard that Medellin is an amazing city where a lot of immigrants or expats go to live because of the technology and there's a lot of things that are very progressive in the city. So it makes sense. How cool.
Exactly. So his family's been living there for I want to say like 4 or 5 years. His
Wow.
mom is like back and forth because she was finishing before retiring, and I think she just retired, so she's gonna move there full time
That's so
as
crazy.
soon as she can.
Wow. That is so amazing. And how did you ended up in Taiwan?
Right. So I did a lot of traveling. I've
Yeah.
been to maybe like 15 countries
Wow.
now, uh, which is kind of crazy because I feel like if my US visa had been approved, I wouldn't have done all this traveling.
Mm.
So here we
Silver
are.
lining.
Right. So I've been to like Argentina and Mexico and Canada. I've been like to a bunch of like Southeast Asian countries. I've been to Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, Singapore, Hong Kong. I've been to Australia.
Wow.
Um, so I've done a lot of traveling while working online.
Okay.
That's something that I really, really enjoy doing. I really like having my own time and doing my own thing. But to live in Taiwan, I came here because my boyfriend David got a job here.
Wow.
And they would only give me like 30-day tourist visa. That was it. They were just like 30 days and you leave, 30 days and you leave. And you can't just like leave and come back right away the way so many privileged travelers do.
Mm-hmm.
I have to apply for a new visa and explain myself every single time and say, like, this is why I want to go. My boyfriend still lives there. I still want to go see him. I am going to fill out all his paperwork every single time until I was just like, I really hate this and I just want to live
Yeah.
there with you. So after a really long time, it's been like 2 years of
Doing
work,
that, doing the
of
monthly
like
thing. No.
yeah, of like coming here, going back to, I went back to Colombia for like 10 months. David and I even like broke up in the process because it was
Of
so
course.
hard.
Yeah.
Um, and we went to live in Vietnam for 6 months to see if that could work better.
Wow.
David didn't like it. So then we tried it again and I signed up for Chinese classes. So that gave me a student visa.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like working online, but also taking 10 hours, just a class a week, plus all the work that I had to do. So I
Oh
was
my
working
god.
like a ton just to have this visa. And I
Wow.
was really lucky last year in December, I started a full-time job here. So they got me a work
Oh my god. I was like, how did this it's like it's
visa.
complicated wherever you go. It's hard to emigrate. Like
It's really
having a
hard.
job, having, like you had your online job and you like how is it so yeah. It seems like at least you were able to find a job, like a stable full-time job, and they gave you a work visa, which I know it can be really hard in other countries. So I'm glad that you were able to explore that as an option. Yeah. What are you
I
doing
had been
in
applying for like years, for like
mm,
since the very first time I came to Taiwan, I applied for jobs. And while we were living in Vietnam, I would apply for like 10 jobs a day and I got a few interviews, but nothing. So I got really lucky. Like one of the like um CVs that I sent to a vacancy in April, I got a call back in November. And they were like, "Hey, like, are you still available?"
are you serious? All of that
So
time.
that whole time I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to stay here. I'm gonna have to start planning something else. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then finally it was just like basically everything I had asked for was just given to me. They were like, here's your work visa, here's your full-time schedule, here's your like twice what you've been making pay upgrade. Like
Oh my
I
goodness.
just got everything that I wanted all at once and it was really
Oh
overwhelming.
my. You were like, no, I don't know. Is that what you felt like you needed to leave? You were like, this is too much
Oh my God.
stability.
I was just like, do I deserve this?
Why do we do that? Like we do that to
Right.
ourselves. It's so crazy. And what's so how for how long have you been living in Taiwan now?
So I've been living now in Taiwan full time for a year, a little over a year. I came in June of last year to
Okay.
study. So I studied for 5 months before I got my job, and now I've been at my job this whole year, this whole 2020, this whole crazy
Wow,
2020.
I know.
Uh,
The year.
and here we are, and I'm in like the safest island on earth. Like I go to an office every day. All the gyms are open. We've never had quarantine,
Yeah.
so it's like a whole
You're in a
different.
different world, seriously. Like here in the US is just insane. Like people will check in with me and they're like, are you still working from home? And I'm like, yes, this is our life now. This is it. So how is living in Taiwan? Like how cool.
It's it's a totally new immigrant experience and
Mm,
it's a very pleasant. I also got like the kind of like I feel like when you're a student, you get this kind of really warm welcome
yeah.
because they're just like, especially in Taiwan. Taiwan so badly wants people to know Chinese and learn it in Taiwan.
Mm,
They want to like spread. their culture
Yeah.
and their warmth. And so they're constantly encouraging people to come
Mm.
study here. They also have a shortage of university students, so they give a
Yeah.
lot of scholarships out.
That's great.
Um, so it was just really nice. I came
Mm.
and I had the best Chinese teacher for like the summer course. She was like, she just made me want to go to Chinese school all the time.
So
And
cool.
that's like the best. I felt like a kid again, where you're just like, this is fun. This is great.
Learning a language can be fun.
It can be so
Right.
fun. Like it really, learning anything is all about like the type of chemistry you have with your teacher
Yeah.
and the type of energy that your teacher gives you.
Mm. Yeah.
So that was really awesome. I started learning really fast, and like all of a sudden, like all these things that didn't make sense just started to like click,
Mm.
and that was so cool because I've been coming here for ages and I didn't know anything.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, like the messages that I'd always heard on the metro or on the buses or all these things, I'm just like, I know what this means.
Ah, that's so awesome.
That was wild. So it was really a lesson
Mm.
doing things on my own and just like making decisions on my own and just being like, all right, well, this is where I am right now and I haven't figured out the rest and it's okay.
Yeah, that's definitely okay. How's your Chinese right now? Coming along.
It's good. I'm super shy with it. I have two Taiwanese roommates and they're every time like when they found out that I spoke Chinese, they were like, "Oh, speak Chinese to us." And I would just like
Like
turn bright red.
no,
I'm like,
I
don't make me. So
yeah.
I'm decent. I can definitely get a point across. I understand a lot of.
Um, can you speak English at your job, at your work, or you need to speak Chinese?
No, so I got really lucky. They were looking for a native English speaker to do the marketing for the US market.
Oh wow.
So I work for a Taiwanese company. They sell like smart baby monitors and they sell in the US, Canada, Australia, and
Wow.
the UK. So they need a lot of English speakers. So I was hired for their US market for
Oh
content
wow.
marketing.
Great. That's amazing. So in a way you're working with the US too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't hired for my Spanish at all.
And there you go. Nothing goes wasted for real. Like everything that you learn, every experience you go through, it's gonna work for something, but sometimes we don't see it at the moment. Yeah.
Exactly.
And Ximena, I'm excited because I can share with people that if they really want to learn more about how is living in Taiwan, they can see you on YouTube and with your project that I would love for you to share with others. Like what motivated you to start that account and that YouTube channel, sharing your experience in Taiwan.
Yeah, so I've always been a content creator, so I'm a content marketer, but I've always been a content creator, content writer, and I've never really worked on video content until
Mm.
now. And it's
Mm.
a learning process. I'm not very good, but I think like it's been fun to learn how to edit videos and do things and get all those lessons. But I've been sharing videos since June, and my goal is to share one video per week for a year, a full year.
Amazing.
And that's been really the number one goal. It's been like, even if I have zero followers, two followers,
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter, one per week for a full year to like commit
Mm-hmm.
and really document my time here. So that's been the number one goal. And the second goal really has been how can I show people who are just like me, like I don't have special privilege, especially passport wise.
Mm-hmm.
How do I show people who have just one passport, which is not the most privileged passport? How do I show women who are constantly accused of being drug mules and not having a legitimate reason for traveling
Mm.
alone that they can do it and they can move abroad and you don't need rich parents
Mm.
or a scholarship
I
or
love
a
that.
special job to take you away from your country?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can choose these things for yourself and
Mm.
really show them what it looks like when you do. And
That's
there's
amazing.
light on the other side, and it's not a huge
Mm.
struggle. It's just like you get to have a, a life that you choose,
Mm.
and there are some struggles along the way, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I want to show people that, especially like young women.
I think that's really gonna be so amazing just to see for yourself, to see that experience of a whole year, right? Like even as you said, like don't even think about who's watching, which I love the goal that you have of showing that to people, but even to yourself, right? Like you're enjoying the process, And at the end of the year, you're going to experience seeing all of these videos and saying, wow, these are all of the things I was able to do and explore. I think that's just so wonderful and amazing.
Yeah, there's been so many travels that I've had little bits and pieces of videos of that I
Yeah.
never put together and never did anything with. And I think this is just such a good opportunity to just have like a video scrapbook of
Yeah.
my late 20s.
It's like an album. Yeah, like the pictures, but then you can go and see it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And how can people find it and to check them out if they want to go check that out?
So I am on YouTube under my name, which is Ximena Restrepo, and you can search Ximena in Taiwan, and that will come out as well. Luckily, I'm ranking for that. Apparently, there's not a lot
Yay.
of Ximenas here.
See, I love it. Nice.
So yeah, you can find it on YouTube that way. I've been posting every week for a couple of months now, and I share
Nice.
a lot just like about what my everyday life looks like. And I'm trying to share more tips about how I've done these things, so how I found a job here and what that kind of process is like
Yeah.
for people who are interested.
Yeah.
And it's been really nice to get some good feedback. I'm excited to get some negative feedback, I guess, because that means like, there's opportunity to grow and there's people watching who aren't my mom. Uh, so
Yeah.
it's a whole process that I'm trying to get a thicker skin
They
for.
say when you get the negative comment, it's that you're making it finally.
Exactly, exactly.
No,
So
I don't know if that's true, but when you get the negative feedback, just just think that.
exactly, I'll remember that you said that.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And I really, Kim, and I loved our conversation and getting to know you. I feel like I can continue to ask you more questions because all of the things that you have been able to experience have been so interesting. And the perspective and the way you see things, I feel it's something that, we can all learn from it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vito, for having me. Honestly, this was super fun, and I'm so happy that I was able to share a little bit. And if you'll have me back, I'll come back one of these days and
Of
tell you
course.
more about
I will love it. If we need to do a part two, we will. Thank you so much, Jimin. I hope you have a good day and the opposite, you're ahead of time.
it. Right? I'm in the tomorrow.
You're in the tomorrow. You tell me how it is.